So Rick's business, if it's still your erectile dysfunction clinics, that is a sea change, maybe.
I love how we're cheering for erectile dysfunction clinics.
Oh, there we go.
Hello and welcome to Nicole Reacts, a show in which I, Nicole, react to online marketing gurus that I find on the internet. My qualifications for snark and commentary are that I've owned a marketing company for 15 years. In that time, having worked with hundreds of clients on marketing strategy and implementation. So I know what I'm talking about when it comes to marketing. And if you like learning about marketing in this sort of fun and entertaining way, you can check out the Nicole Reacts playlist on the YouTube channel, or you can go to the breakingeveninc.com/blog area of the website, click on the Nicole Reacts category, and you will be able to see everything. So today's person is Dan Kennedy. And if you're like, wait a minute, that name sounds really familiar. If you are a listener to the Moth Radio Hour, you might recognize the name Dan Kennedy. And it's not that Dan Kennedy. Okay. So the American writer that actually has a Wikipedia entry about him and started the Moth, he's probably around my age. And the Dan Kennedy I'm talking about is much older than that. He's on the Philip Kolter side of things in terms of demographic, old white guy. And what I think is really interesting is I can't really find a bio about him. So I found this little write-up on entrepreneur.com, which is one of those kind of iffy publications, but let's look at it because it's what we got. Okay, I don't know why that middle picture isn't loading on entrepreneur.com, like where it says marketing. That appears to be a them issue. But it lists Dan S. Kennedy as an author, strategic advisor, consultant, and business coach. Dan S. Kennedy is a strategic advisor, consultant, business coach, and author of popular No BS book series. He directly influences more than 1 million business owners annually. I think that's a really weird way to put something. Like, is that the total size of his audience? Is that people he's directly working with in some kind of program? But let's go look at this No BS book series website because it's a real treat. All right, so this is the website. Yes, you are watching this video in the year of 2023. These are the No BS books. Let me read you some of the titles. No BS Guide to Brand Building by Direct Response, the ultimate no-holds-barred plan to creating and profiting from a powerful brand without buying it. I think it means without buying the brand or without buying the BS. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, here's another book. No BS Direct Marketing, the ultimate no-holds-barred, kick butt, take no prisoners, direct marketing for non-direct marketing businesses. This is a third book. No BS Guide to Marketing to Leading Edge Boomers and Seniors, the ultimate no holds barred, take no prisoners roadmap to the money. Some of the text on some of the colors is a little bit hard to read. And I'll read two more books. The No BS Trust-Based Marketing, the ultimate guide to creating trust in an understandably untrusting world. And No BS Price Strategy, the ultimate no holds barred, kick butt, take no prisoners guide to profits, power, and prosperity. So maybe Russell Brunson bought this book line or something. I don't quite know, but it has a direct marketing stamp on the top. And this No BS guide sounds like those books for dummies that were really big in the 90s that had the yellow and black covers. Like you could buy Internet Marketing for Dummies, Microsoft Excel for Dummies, Lawn Care for Dummies. Like you could pretty much buy a for dummies book about anything. It seems like this is his particular brand of that. So let me see if I can actually look in the interior to any of these books. This is the No BS Direct Marketing book. I've scrolled to chapter 1 so that we can see what it looks like. Oh my God, these fonts. Chapter 1, The Big Switch. Why direct marketing for non-direct marketing businesses? ? It is an odd sort of title, isn't it? If you picked it up hoping for huge breakthroughs in your business, you bought the right book. But first, let's get these definitions out of the way. By non-direct marketing business, I mean anything but a mail order, catalog, or online marketer who directly solicits orders for merchandise. And it looks like there's some pull quotes throughout. So a pull quote is basically when you have a format to a page and then there's something that kind of like interrupts the formatting. It's called a pull quote in a newspaper. So in the middle of this page is a big box. There's a guy with a handlebar mustache in the corner and a bull behind him. So I don't know if this is like a cartoon of him or something, but it says, don't wait. Right now, go to www.nobsbooks.com, click free newsletter and enroll for 3 months of my No BS marketing letter and my monthly audio CD free. Also sign up for the free email course that extends and expands this book. And then another pull quote is, Big company's agenda for advertising and marketing. Man, that title font is really hard to read. Number 1, please appease its board of directors, most of whom know zip about advertising and marketing but have lots of opinions. 2, please and appease its stockholders. 3, look good, look appropriate to Wall Street. 4, look good, appropriate to the media. 5, build brand identity. 6, win awards for advertising. 7, sell something. Your agenda, sell something, period. Now, period. That's funny. There's no periods in any of the big companies' agenda, but there is 2 periods in the one item in your agenda. Okay. I don't know. All right. So there is an index. I'm like scrolling around here. Like lemons, comma, into lemonade is on page 128 to 130. Marketing. And then there's a sub thing called incest marketing, page 8. Very curious about that one. I'm going to go to page 8 and see if I can learn what that is. So it cuts off at page 8. So the good news is we're going to know what marketing incest means. So let's read it. The reasons for the cluelessness and vulnerability to victimization are many. Here's the big one: marketing incest. When you got into whatever business you're in, you probably looked around at what everyone else in the business was doing and copied it. Gradually, you tried to do it better, but not radically different, just better. And so you have everyone in an industry standing in a circle, looking inward at each other, ignoring anyone or anything outside its circle. It's incestuous. And it works just like real generational incest. Everyone slowly gets dumber and dumber. Whew, okay. I don't know about this guy's content, guys. It seems like it's going to be a little rough. I don't know what any trigger warnings would be because I haven't watched this content yet, but an older white guy who mentions incest as sort of casual reference, I'm guessing is going to say some problematic shit in a 1 hour and 45-minute training. So just prepare your hearts for that. And if that's not good for you, scroll along. There's a lot more videos you can watch than this one if you want to stay on this channel. Yeah, so let's see what Den S. Kennedy has to say about marketing. And this was from a presentation in Las Vegas. It was uploaded 11 months ago, but who knows how old it actually is. And based on the sort of visuals of the video as it's starting, I'm guessing it's a little bit older. This video is called Dan Kennedy Informational Marketing Secret Sessions Part 1 of 3. This part 1 is an hour and 26 minutes long. Just get a favorite beverage and let's get this party started. Based on this, I'm guessing this video is older than 11 months old. I don't know how old, but maybe we'll look for some clues as we're watching.
I'm bored. And not bored with.
Okay, you guys, this is an overhead projector, I think. And I'm old enough to remember when these were pretty standard. Like my high school calculus teacher definitely did math problems on the overhead projector. And when I gave my thesis presentation in college, I was so worried that the computer wasn't going to work that I actually got transparent sheets and I printed all of my PowerPoint slides onto them in case I needed to switch to the overhead projector to do my thesis presentation. Yeah, this is going to be old school. And guys, he's already bored, so I can't wait. Maybe this is just a hook at the beginning. If his slides get important, I might make myself smaller and him bigger. But for now,
with my life, it's a chaotic mess.
He just has a white handlebar mustache. He's wearing a suit and he's standing on a stage. It looks like he's got water in a little tiny ice bucket. So good for him.
It's fine. But I'm actually bored with most of the advertising I see. David Ogilvy, who was one of the Mad Men characters, was modeled after David Ogilvy, great advertising guy. We're going to talk about him sometime in the 3 sessions that we have here. Ogilvy at one time got so bored and frustrated with his world, with advertising, that he actually retired for 2 years as a farmer in an Amish country because he just didn't want to see any of it. Our people who should be better than most of it bored me.
In case you're listening, he's standing on a stage, clearly at probably a pretty large event. And he has an overhead projector in the middle. And on one side is the water. And on the other side is what looks like a giant clock. So he's probably tracking how much time he's talking here, which is probably good. It looks like a clock anyway. We're only seeing the back of it, but it looks like those old-fashioned alarm clocks that have the 2 bells on the top. It looks like it's one of those.
So this is an indictment. You guys are defaulting to where all the dumb, boring people in advertising default to.
Is he calling us dumb and boring? Like he's saying you're doing what dumb and boring people are doing. So ergo, we're dumb and boring? Just checking.
Here's our product or our service. So here's our thing. Let's explain what it is. Let's list its 5 features. It comes in blue. we'll do these three things for you. Let's describe its features. Then let's translate the features into benefits badly. Then let's pose some kind of little argument about why we're better than the other people who appear to be doing the same thing, which, by the way, the minute you're there, you're in trouble.
The camera seems a little bit jiggly. Maybe my brain is just having a moment here, but
you shouldn't have to be saying why.
But if you feel like the camera on their end is jiggling, it is. My camera is coming in and out of focus a little bit, but this camera actually appears to be jiggling. That's on him.
We do the same thing better because you should be doing something nobody else does. So you got a perception problem there. But here's why we do it better. And most of those statements are, I think it was Helen Gurley Brown. I've lost track now who said it, but it might have been Ann Landers. It might have been Dear Abby. But the advice was, if you can't be kind, at least be vague. So these statements are all very vague.
I think it's funny that he remembered the Don Draper character in their name, but not the name of this woman who said this apparently profound phrase. I think that's interesting.
And then there's price and the great deal we're giving you on price. That's all of it. Now, the big advertisers in TV, they dress that up a little bit just with stupid distractions. The mystic guy trying to open the back of the car with telekinesis. They dress it up a little. But really, that's what everybody's doing. And that ain't great advertising. And if that's where you've wound up, hopefully what we're going to go over here is going to re-stimulate you to be more imaginative and interesting advertisers. It may at the same time make you more interesting people, because generally, if you're advertising boring, you're probably boring too. That's how you get boring advertising. So we were originally supposed to.
If our advertising is boring, it's because we're boring as people. What are we supposed to do about that? How do we become fascinating people like you, Dan S. Kennedy?
Bingo. 51. We ain't even going to get through 43, but we're really going to do 43 significant, interesting moments in advertising, and covering, we'll skip a few for time, but 37, give or take, schools of advertising, meaning a consistent approach that people use over and over again. And you have a little reference list, by the way, that will help you a little in remembering as we go along. So we'll start. I wrote this ad in 1885. I know, you don't have to read it. I wrote this ad in 1885.
Okay, it's not an overhead projector. It's one of those document things. I think we had them in college, like where you could like open up a page of a book and have it project onto the thing. It was more expensive than an overhead projector was. So we didn't, like I said, I only saw them in college a couple of times, but yeah, I'm guessing this is at least 10 years old, this video, but maybe we'll hear some cultural references. I'm guessing this is about 10 years old, just with some clues with the technology.
It should be focused a little bit better than that, but I'm not a focus guy.
That's rude. There's people who are running the tech of the conference and the thing isn't focused. You literally just put it on the projector. So maybe they just need time to get it focused. What? That's so rude to say in front of a bunch of people. How about, hey, I'm noticing this seems a little out of focus. Do you guys mind focusing it for me? Thanks. You don't have to be rude about it.
But you can see that one, right? No.
Okay, you didn't have to keep that in, but okay.
What we are starting with, I can do a little without you seeing anything. Only I need to see it. We're starting with what's called the Created Problem School of Advertising. And the Created Problem School of Advertising.
Okay, he's a pacer. So in case you're listening and not watching, basically he has this kind of large table where the document projector is in the middle of it, and he's just pacing back and forth behind it. If this guy was in my public speaking class in college, my professor would have been like, no, you don't do that. It's distracting.
Is when there is no problem. And we have, in politics, it's called a solution in search of a problem. And It happens a little bit in politics. Oh, this looks interesting.
Are we going to see these visuals or just hear about them?
It happens a little bit in politics, but it actually happens a lot in advertising. Because if all we did was solve real problems, our gross national product would be about $2 a year, and we'd be at 92% unemployment.
Yeah, we completely make up problems all the time. Cellulite is an entirely made up problem. Men and women store fat tissue differently, and cellulite is entirely a marketing thing. I'll link to a resource in the show notes if you want to learn more about that. But yeah, we manufacture problems all the time.
So if you go home and you walk around your house and you study all sorts of things. So everybody got a Keurig machine in your hotel room? Or is this just a wonderful benefit afforded me? You got them? Remember, I can't see but you, so.
This guy is kind of an asshole. So I was thinking Keurig would be a little bit of a cultural moment that we could look up, but apparently Keurig was invented in 1992. I didn't know it had been around that long, but I just find this guy to be kind of rude to people. Remember, I can't see you. I don't know, just the way he talks. I don't know if I will like this guy. I already don't.
Yes.
I already don't like this guy. I'm just going to say it.
Okay. So the Keurig machine is a product that is really a solution in search of a problem. Before somebody...
No, because the problem is if I'm in a hotel room, my option is to make an entire pot of coffee when I really just need one singular coffee. So Keurig actually does solve the problem of wasting coffee, having to clean an entire coffee maker, and all of that, because there's plenty of times a single-use coffee is what's required.
Somebody told you that you needed to get just one cup of coffee at a time. Everybody was perfectly content making a Mr. Coffee pot of coffee.
Just because you haven't experienced a problem doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And just because you're content with the solution that's already out there doesn't mean someone else wouldn't be content with a new one. So let's say that I owned a hotel and it had 500 rooms in it. Okay. And let's say that on any given day, half of those rooms I had a little coffee pot in there and they made a pot of coffee, and most of them only drank one cup. And let's say that I was throwing away, I don't know, 10 pounds of coffee a week, just because I'm not providing a ton of grounds. It's a small coffee maker, whatever. 10 pounds of coffee per week over the course of a year is going to add up to thousands of dollars worth of coffee. Hey guys, editing Nicole. What I didn't say explicitly in the recording, but I want to say now is besides the cost of the coffee grounds that would get thrown out if someone made even a small pot of coffee versus just making themselves one cup in the Keurig, is that the house cleaners at hotels also spend time cleaning out the coffee maker. And clearly they spend a lot more time doing that than maybe wiping down a Keurig once in a while. Just saying, it's a little bit more in the cleaning department as well, and that costs somebody's time. So that's also a cost. And the Keurig, honestly, is a good solution for us. So for the co-working space in Maine, for example, I checked this morning and only one person was in the office. But sometimes there's a lot of people in the office and we do have a coffee maker. So if there's a bunch of people around and they want to make a pot of coffee, they can. But we have the Keurig set up so that when there's one person in the office and they want coffee and they don't want to go through the whole rigmarole of making an entire pot, they can just make themselves a cup very easily. So it solves a problem for some people.
And most people drink 3, by the way, at a time. So the Mr. Coffee pot was actually
not when they're traveling
outright. Now you got to make 3 cups with 3 Keurigs. And by the way, all of you people that sort your trash and have 5 different trash cans and all that stuff, may I point out to you, you have gone from throwing away 1 bag of coffee to throwing away 5,622 little plastic cups a year. Nobody
who is drinking 3 cups of coffee a day is making it in a Keurig. A Keurig is a cup of coffee in a specific instance,
which are not biodegradable. Just so 1,000 years from now, when climate change finally does kill everybody, it'll be because of your damn Keurig little machine things.
No, it'll be because giant companies are polluting the shit out of the air and the water supply and all of that. If you look at the environmental impact of the 100 largest companies in the world versus the impact of every single alive person in the world, it's not even comparable. Fuck you.
And mine too. But so this product is a solution in search of a problem. There was no problem. Nobody knew
There clearly was a problem. That's why they're popular.
there was a problem. It really is not a problem. Everybody would have done just fine
If it wasn't a problem, they wouldn't be in business anymore.
nobody had ever
Nobody would have bought them. No one would continue buying them.
figured this thing out. And now even I've got one in my office, and I'm as anti-tech as you can possibly be.
And part of the reason we got a Keurig in our original office is that we didn't have a kitchenette. And I don't know if you've ever tried to clean a French press in a bathroom sink, but we needed something where we were just cleaning a mug instead of cleaning out like an entire carafe of something. So there's a lot of instances where this is handy, and he even has one in his office. So it sounds like it does solve a problem for you. You bought one.
So the Creative Problem School of Advertising is a really important part of business because mostly the money is in solutions for which there was no problem until we created the solution.
I feel conflicted because I somewhat agree with this. I think that a lot of times our desire to buy something doesn't come with us recognizing a problem in our life, but seeing an advertisement. I say this as like myself included. Like I'll be like, "Ooh, I saw that on TikTok. That looks cool. I want to buy it." I think that some of our buying comes from manufactured problems. Absolutely. But I do think the reason that products are invented and stay financially solvent are because people do use and need them.
States, it largely took over
Maybe not need, but they enjoy them. They enjoy having them.
advertising in the 1920s when Americans became willing to talk about their bodies and bodily functions. And prior to that, none of it was spoken about whatsoever. Now, we have come a long way since 1920. So in 1920s, people began to actually talk about body issues. And advertisers quickly realized they had a whole new category in which they could sell things.
I think the reason the camera is shaking is because it's trying to focus on him, but he keeps moving. And so it does this thing where it comes in and out of focus. I think that's what's going on.
Because before you couldn't sell them because you couldn't talk about it. Now, there was one predating of all this, and I'll get back to them, which really is right in your business, is the Dr. Brinkley story. But really, the 20s really became this exploration of previously unmentionable and largely unknown problems. And the great pioneer was Listerine. So Listerine was a hospital antiseptic, and it was sold like in 55-gallon drums to hospitals. It was invented in the early 1900s by a guy named Lambert in St. Louis, and it was at one time then marketed, you could buy it in drugstores, as a remedy for throat infections. So it was like an industrial length strength antibiotic liquid if you had an infected throat.
You didn't just gurgle it? Because it says on Listerine, do not swallow. I could see like the antiseptic property if you would gurgle it, like how it could help a sore throat. But yeah, okay.
It was not a profitable product. The company barely, I don't know if I have numbers.
You sound really organized.
I don't. But so in 1922, when this explosion of public conversation about bodily functions occurred in America, and you always want to look for a sea shift in public opinion and behavior and conversation, because it opens up doors to sell things in a way you couldn't sell them before. So Rick's business, if it's still your erectile dysfunction clinics, that is a sea change, maybe.
I love how we're cheering for erectile dysfunction clinics.
Oh, there we go. Wow, there we go. Isn't that wonderful? Bad breath. There was a medical term for it. We had it for a moment.
Halitosis?
Now we're losing it. Is it there? Oh, good. Okay. So we're back to when I was drinking. You can see it. I can't. That's all right. I got it right here.
Joke about alcoholism.
I got it right here. We'll be okay. It's Dean Martin. So in 1922, a couple of ad guys, unnamed in the story, but figured out they could sell Listerine not as a cure for throat infections, but as a cure for bad breath, which nobody knew they had.
I'm sure someone knew they had it.
So I don't know how everybody was walking around and not knocking each other down and all that shit before.
This guy's clearly never met someone with bad breath. It is a problem.
But cavemen had sex, and they undoubtedly had horrible body odor. And
yeah, so because cavemen had sex with people with unwashed asses literally means I have to? No.
that, so presumably, this really was not a problem. Everybody was just turning their head and going at it, I guess. But all of a sudden, these guys figured out we can sell bad breath and thereby sell Listerine. Here's the impact. It's really interesting. This company was like limping, doing nothing. The ad spend in 1 year went from virtually nothing, because you couldn't advertise the stuff because you couldn't, right, to
because you couldn't talk about it?
$5 million a year. This is in 1922. $5 million a year ad budget. They were in 80 magazines with full page ads. 300.
I just checked, and $1 million in 1922 money is worth about $18 million today. They spent over $100 million, or the equivalent of marketing Listerine as a breath freshener back in 1922.
100 newspapers across the country every week with full page ads. The product that year produced a net profit of $4 million. And again, this is in 1922.
Okay, net profit means it actually made $9 million. So they spent $5 million and made a total of $9 million. So after paying their expenses, they had $4 million left.
Athlete's foot.
Again, have you ever had athlete's foot? It's really itchy. It's really uncomfortable.
You guys all know about athlete's foot, right? Some of you like to have it because it makes you an athlete.
I don't think that's the case, but okay.
Athlete's foot was invented by an advertising copywriter. That's who invented it. Nobody before that knew they had it. Nobody was doing anything about it.
No, they just had like itchy feet and were like, oh, this is uncomfortable. I hope it goes away soon. What this guy fails to realize is just because nobody's complaining about a problem to him doesn't mean the problem doesn't exist. Actually, this just happened to me last week. I got a new pair of shoes I've been trying to break in. And so I wore them for a day and I got massive blisters. And so I was at the grocery store and I saw these Band-Aids and I thought they're specifically like for blisters on your feet. And I was like, you know what? Sure. Let's buy the expensive Band-Aids and let's do it. And let me tell you, I put 2 of these things on and I can wear shoes again. I can wear shoes. It doesn't hurt. And I was like, oh my God, modern technology. Normally I would have been like, okay, I'm going to be uncomfortable for the next week as I keep rubbing my shoe against this blister that's on the back of both of my feet. But now I have a product that allows me to just wear shoes without it hurting. So why wouldn't I buy it? Come on.
And the first treatment product for it that was sold as an athlete's foot remedy already existed, just like Listerine had existed in a former life. It was a pain liniment called Absorbine Junior.
Oh, hello, cat.
If you don't have it, Grandma has it in her medicine cabinet. We use it on racehorses. It's still sold as a pain liniment, but it became the cure with a different label on it for athlete's foot and created an entire industry. The aforementioned.
Yeah, and blood pressure medication became Viagra. Sometimes you find that something was useful in one realm and is now useful in another realm too.
Body odor.
Again, also a problem. Have you ever been around somebody who has really bad body odor? This is not something people want to have, and it's not something people want to be around. So I understand wanting to solve this. This is a solvable problem. Why not solve it?
Nobody knew they had an objectionable. I mean, everybody, I guess, knew they had body odor, but nobody knew body odor was invented by the John Powers Advertising Agency.
It existed before that. They didn't invent it.
For a product called Mum Deodorant, which I don't think exists. But then it was picked up by another ad agency in 1928 for Lifebuoy soap, which does, of course, exist. So here's some great Listerine ads. And
I don't think we're going to see any of them. So
I want you to go back to my earlier remarks and think about The difference between what you're going to see, and let's show everybody the product, tell everybody what it does. So this is from, when is this from? 1928. Halitosis makes you unpopular. It is inexcusable and can be instantly remedied. There's an important copy. Don't fool yourself that you never have halitosis, as do many self-assured people who constantly offend this way. There's a demo, this copy over here. If you have any doubt of Listerine's powerful deodorant properties, make this test. Rub a slice of onion on your hand, then apply Listerine. Immediately, every trace of onion is gone. Even the strong odor of fish yields to it. Here's less subtle. The headline is, often a bridesmaid, but never a bride. Right? This entire ad is the story of Edna, unable to get a man because of her god-awful breath.
But apparently Edna's a good enough friend to be in your bridal party, just saying.
Which Listerine will cure. They were equal opportunists. This is a picture of a lovely young woman, and the headline says, could I be happy with him in spite of that? And it is a whole story about her suitor, who is perfect in every way, except for the onion breath that would stop a truck. And she is trying to figure out how, if she can live with this guy. Back to her, we have, she never really knew why. So this is a story about first dates. This is a story about this lovely young woman who goes on a date with a person she considers perfect, but he does not call or invite her, and she never knew why. Today, of course, you get a tweet, says your breath sucks.
This guy sounds like he really knows a lot about social media.
Then that just was not done. So Listerine was a cure for social dysfunction. It was a solution for all of what ails us in getting people to like us and interact with us. And it was made possible by us being willing to talk about things we, up until that point in time, were not willing to talk about. Now, this has happened in a lot of industries. Cosmetic surgery is one of them. Women used to sneak off, hide that, not want anybody to know they got it done. Now they have parties and celebrate the new thing after they get it. Actresses talk about it openly. Hollywood actresses used to be smuggled to some doctor who signed 56 non-disclosure oaths. Like you wouldn't know, right?
I bet this guy has seen a pair of fake boobs and thought they were real before. Just saying.
This was never, now it's popular conversation. So the guy who revolutionized 20th century direct response did it in this school of advertising of a problem you never knew you had. It's where he cut his teeth. He's a very famous guy. His name is Max Sakon. And Max invented the Book of the Month Club, which sounds like a pretty benign product. It's not like Listerine, you would think. He was the inventor of the negative option club plan, which we'll talk about a little bit. He also, for a separate product, he wrote one of the most successful direct response ads in all of history in terms of its longevity. It ran every week somewhere for 40 years. Its headline was, "Do you make these mistakes in English?" Max also popularized the American Express card.
Wait, was this the never leave home without it credit card campaign in the 1990s? Was that American Express or was that one of the other credit cards?
But let's go back to the Book of the Month Club. So if you're not very imaginative as an advertiser and you are going to sell Book of the Month Club, which means you get a book sent to you every month, here's what you're going to do. You're going to talk about the books, and you're going to talk about how they're picked, and you're going to talk about how you get them at half price. And
okay, so I get what he's getting at, which is the fact that most advertising, if you look at it, that's really effective, is emotional. So rather than going into, you get one book a month and here's how we pick them, it's like you would say something like, be the most interesting person at any party, or be considered the smartest person in the room, or look good in front of your boss by reading a book a month. This Book of the Month Club has business books that will keep you on the cutting edge of knowing everything about business and marketing as it happens from leading authors and thought leaders in business. That's what he's gonna, I think, say, instead of talking about you get one book a month, it has this many pages, this is the rigorous process through which we pick them. It's instead, okay, how are you going to feel, or how are you going to appear in the world being able to read a book a month,
et cetera, et cetera. That's what you're going to do. Now, Max's great line was, how frequently do you fail to get and read an important book which everybody else is discussing and reading? You inadequate, bad breath, athlete's foot riddled dolt. That's implied.
so you're like negging people. So this guy popularized negging people.
So these ads, here's a typical Book of the Month Club ad. The headline is placed in your hand so that you can't miss it, this outstanding book each month. I'll read you. Look, I got to squint too. Not only are you absolutely safeguarded against missing the books you want to read, you also keep completely informed about all the worthwhile new books, and you exercise a more discriminating choice among the new books than you do now. The average person, it's important. Sackheim is a great copywriter. The average person, this is how the ad starts. Very first sentence right here says, the average person. How do most people respond to that internally?
I'm not average.
Not me. I'm not average. Lake Wobegon. All of the kids are above average.
Lake Wobegon is Garrison Keillor's fictional world in Prairie Home Companion, in case you're wondering what he's
Up
referring
in the
to.
parking lot of any private school.
Where the women are tall, the men are whatever, and all the children are above average. I forget what the actual line is, but
Everybody's got a bumper sticker. My kid's a super A+ student. There are no average students at this school. The reaction is instantly, not me. The ad then goes on to tell us how not to be one, because by your behavior, we know ye. So this ad turned a mundane product like Book of the Month into a solution like Viagra, like Listerine. That is real advertising. That is, forget the product. Let's talk about the emotional issue of the product.
But there's a way to frame the emotional issue in this negative way. Oh, only average people don't read books. Or there's a way of saying, hey, be the most interesting person in any room. Or there's a way to frame it that's more positive, but that does the same emotional appeal as the copy that he, I guess, is reading. I prefer that personally, but
Second school of advertising is, I call it the elephant in the room. It's the problem about which we do not speak. So this started to change too. There are still, this happens on an evolutionary basis. So there's stuff right now about which we do not speak. Here's one from 1923, and it might be a problem a lot of people wouldn't still speak about today. So this is a very successful ad for a product called Dr. Elliott's 5-foot shelf of books. So you got a 5-foot shelf of books.
okay.
The headline is, 1 year married and all talked out. I'll read you one paragraph. If you are with your spouse and you are chuckling, not smart. Some restraint is advised. He sits in moody silence under the lamp. The click of her needles, I assume knitting needles, the click of her needles is the only sound that breaks the veil of depression.
Yeah, if she was using tattooing needles, like you wouldn't hear them clicking together.
In the room. The veil of depression. See, that's copy. That's copy. Not 5-foot shelf of books. They're leather bound. They each have over 100 pages. They're the veil of depression.
Yeah, we're trying to evoke feelings. Yeah, we get that.
This changes everything. This, by the way, is what I call a mind hijack, because it actually takes the mind totally away from the product. Doesn't matter really that it's a 5-foot shelf of books. It's irrelevant.
Yeah, because now you're thinking about the problems in your boring marriage.
It makes it irrelevant. And it switches the mind to that horrible experience, living in the veil of depression and silence, and we must fix this.
can also just sit quietly in a room with your significant other. You don't have to be talking all the time. I used to worry when I would go to restaurants and I'd see couples being quiet at the table. I thought, oh, they have nothing else to talk about. Now I'm like, oh, they're probably comfortable with each other. They can sit in silence and enjoy their food or whatever. I don't know. Just saying.
It flips a switch.
And now you're putting it in the guy's mind like, oh, my marriage is boring and I need to read books to keep it interesting.
Now, in the way
Maybe. But maybe you could just talk to your spouse and say, hey, I'm worried our marriage is getting boring. And maybe your spouse will put down her knitting needles and say, oh, I was a little worried about that too. And then you could figure out a solution together.
a person responds going forward. So let's talk about this mind hijack
Yeah.
that is accomplished with 1 year married and all talked out. It links to pre-existing condition
Okay.
or a false belief about pre-existing condition. So looping all the way back to Dr. Brinkley. So Dr. Brinkley, for those of you that don't know, there's a book I co-authored with a member of ours called Making Them Believe about his marketing. He was turn of the century, 1900s. And he marketed the first erectile dysfunction cure in America.
Did it work?
This is way before Mike Ditka throwing the football through the football.
Oh, yeah. The throwing the football through the tire. That was a pretty good commercial for Viagra. I wonder what the first cure for erectile dysfunction was and if it actually worked.
Through the tire for Viagra.
That was a good commercial.
His
It was memorable.
cure for erectile dysfunction, for those of you that don't know, was grafting goat glands to men's testicles.
So we're selling surgery to people? Okay. Seems like a harder sell than a book of the month, but
So guys came by horse, by train, by every mechanism
probably not by goat, though.
to the Brinkley Clinic to have him stitch goat glands onto their testicles. It might occur to you
I heard someone in the crowd say, ow. Yeah.
that can't have any effect. You might as well graft a Buick. How can this possibly? However, he became the richest doctor at the time. By the way, you didn't have to go to medical school. He became
Just dabble in surgery.
the richest doctor in America. The American Medical Association was actually created to put him out of business.
Sounds like that was a good idea.
He was world famous and stayed famous for a long time. In the LBJ tapes that were released under Freedom of Information Act, there's a phone conversation Lyndon Johnson is having with somebody, and he says, maybe I should go see Dr. Brinkley and get some of them goat glands.
Freedom of information.
So the reason this improbable cure was sold so successfully is because of the mind hijack, the switch of pre-existing condition. We were an agricultural country at that time. Almost everybody lived on a farm or lived in town surrounded by farms. Everybody had goats, and everybody knew goats were extremely horny, hence the term horny goat.
Okay.
Hence, if you go to a health food store today to buy a non-medical cure for this particular problem, you can buy a product called horny goat weed in pill form. So the minute we do this, 1 year married and all talked out in the veil of silence, guess what? That's a real pre-existing condition. Guy goes, I got it. What's the cure? So this is a real important thing to understand about advertising is what do people already know? What do people already talk about privately that we can hook to? Next one, I just did this more because it's fun than anything else, but there's a school of advertising called, let's not mention what this is really for. We'll sell it, but we won't really come out and say what people are going to use it for because we still can't quite do that.
What's an example? I don't know what kind of product this would be. I can't think of an example of this.
So this is an ad that ran in comic books for a number of years, very successful, sold a lot of merchandise, and it is for the Raquel Welch pillow. For those of you who don't know who Raquel Welch is, that's why you got Wikipedia.
Does he mean look it up later? That's why you have Wikipedia. I'm not going to just take 5 seconds to give you a little Raquel Welch was a famous actress who was a pinup person in the 1950s and 60s.
Pillow, which is sold with euphemism language, but close. It's a soft, huggable, kissable pillow. They left out a more overt word.
Wait, was this the original waifu?
It's important that it's not the perfect date, but it's still fun to hang out with, and it's very durable.
Oh my God, this was the original waifu. And these pillows existed before anime even came to this country. It's so interesting.
This is in comic books for teenage boys.
I bet it is.
By the way, everybody now is naming their vice presidential candidate. I'm running with Raquel Welch, if that's my choice. So.
Wait, is this in reference to when John McCain picked Sarah Palin as his running mate? And when was that? 10-ish years ago? So I think we're getting more and more light cultural clues here as to when this was recorded.
Why was I fired? This is
because you took your Raquel Welch pillow to work.
Very successful control ad from 1926. It's a very sad looking guy with his hands in his pockets and a frustrated wife looking at him. And the headline of the ad is, "Why was I fired?" I'll read you the important points. She says, "And this is the second job you've lost, dear," said his wife sorrowfully. "We're surely up against hard luck." What is this ad really about? You ain't getting any until you get a job. That's what this ad is really about. You better like the couch, doofus. And 3 strikes and your ass is out. That's what this ad is about.
I don't know. Maybe it's, hey, you're the sole breadwinner in this household and you can't seem to hold down a job. I'm a little worried we're going to be homeless. I think sex is literally the last possible thing on the woman's mind right now. I think she just wants to make sure that they stay financially solvent, and she can't really do much about it because, I think sex is literally the last thing on this woman's mind. I think we need to make sure basic needs are taken care of before we take care of the sexual needs of this guy.
Okay. So we can't really say what this really is for, this free booklet that is going to fix this, but every guy got the message. I know what this is for.
It's interesting. I wouldn't have read it that way. So maybe this is like a thing that was written for men and not for me. And that's why I'm not getting the subtext here.
And I better send for it. Which gets us
to just get a job.
One of my favorite categories, which is the anything but subtle category. So this is where we abandon all euphemism, all implication, all kindness, and we go for the
How is it kind to be vague? I don't understand.
Throat. In the insurance industry, there's been versions of this for years. This one happens to be from 1926.
Also, what's the obsession with looking at ads that are literally 100 years old? Haven't we learned so much more in the way of like science and technology and culture? Haven't we learned more about human psychology and motivations and all kinds of things like that, that we would be able to sell better now than we did in the 1920s? Don't we now have websites and very niche publications that allow us to reach a very specific demographic very specifically? I don't know. A lot's changed. I don't know why we're looking at shit that's 100 years old.
From Prudential, big full page ad, big picture. You won't be able to read the sign here on the gate says Orphan Asylum. And there's these urchins here being dropped off at the gate of the orphanage. And the kid says, they said father didn't keep his life insurance paid up. That's anything but subtle.
Yep, I'd say so.
Look at Prudential's ads today. This ad had balls. Prudential's ads today are like castrated. If you tried to get that through their compliance department today, if any of you are in financial services, you know what a compliance department is, right? It's the sales prevention department on steroids.
Yeah, also it's making sure that nobody makes false claims in selling a product. It protects the consumer.
It's people who get together every day to figure out how an agent can't possibly sell a policy. That's what it is.
I think it probably exists for a reason, but I think I know how you feel about it.
right? It's kind of like two of those commandments God came up with. These guys are in a room figuring out every day how to frustrate the agent. There's no tomorrow. It's some kind of perverse exercise.
As somebody who does marketing work with industries that have compliance measures like real estate and banking and healthcare and insurance, it's really not that hard to follow their guidelines at all. They're usually pretty spelled out. For example, when I work with a bank or a financial planner, I know that we can't share anything that would constitute as financial advice. So I can't write a blog post called Why CDs Are Better Than Savings Accounts, because the reality is that for some people they aren't. And financial advice is individualized. I could talk about the pros and cons of a savings account versus a CD and say, if you're not sure, come into this bank and we'll help you pick the right product for you. I could say that. So these compliance measures are meant to keep consumers safe and meant to make sure that misinformation about products and services from regulated companies doesn't get out into the public. It's not that hard to follow these rules. And if you think it's hard, maybe don't be in these industries.
You couldn't run this ad for Prude today for love nor money.
Yeah, because it's about people giving up their kids to an orphanage. Yeah, it's a little dark.
But it would work. It would work.
No, everyone would be like, wow, that's fucking harsh.
Here, think you can't pull this off for a mundane product? 1923. Let me show you the top first. There's two people outside a house, and the headline says, Jones must be broke. This is for Devoe Paint. That's the advertiser, a company selling house paint. Can you be more mundane? How would most people sell house paint? Look at how they sell house paint today. We got paint. It's in 56 colors. Your kid can write on it and we can erect Jones.
That's useful though. If you have small children and you need to be able to clean surfaces easily, like that's an important feature of the product. Low VOCs, that I only have to do one coat of paint instead of 4 or whatever, you know what I mean?
Jones must be broke. Okay? No matter how beautiful your home may be within, no matter how successful you may be, an outside surface of dilapidated paint is sure to give an unfavorable impression of your circumstances. Confidence, consideration, and respect surround the family whose home bears the beaming look of prosperity that only proper use of paint and varnish can provide. That's advertising.
Can we see some more modern examples of what you think good advertising is? Gone are the days of Mad Men, okay? I know that we like to look on these times like they were the golden age of advertising. I think we're now in the actual golden age of advertising, since it's not just big companies that have access to marketing and advertising things now. Small businesses do too, which I think is really cool.
That's very different from a lot of what we see today. Next school of advertising. Buy now before it's really too late. The world is about to end. Spend your last dollar on this. This school lives on uninterrupted, ironically.
Why is it ironic? Because the world should have ended by now, you mean, if everyone has been thinking it's the apocalypse for the last 100 years?
Forever. So here's a control ad from roughly 20 years ago, and you tell me we couldn't run this today. It's for the Wall Street Underground newsletter. It's not particularly subtle. Read this or go broke. You're being fattened up for the kill. The rallies we've seen since the April tech wreck. I don't know what tech was 20 years ago. What were the tech stocks 20 years ago? I don't know. We've seen since the April tech wreck are classic bull traps. They're designed to lure naive investors back into the stock market. Facebook yesterday. So I can rewrite this. The April tech wreck are classic bull traps. Something like Facebook's huge leap yesterday. It was designed to lure naive investors back into the stock market. Make no mistake, Wall Street insiders are preparing another massive tech sell-off later this year, but they'll siphon an additional $1 trillion out of ordinary investors, mutual funds, brokerage accounts, and retirement funds. Understand, this is for a newsletter. Now, this industry still gets it. If you go find their marketing and advertising in their direct mail today, it's still going to look more like this than it's going to look like dull, boring advertising. But it hadn't changed. We can still run it. We can take this and change a couple things. So I have a client, Craig Proctor. He has the single biggest coaching program for real estate agents. And I've been working with him for 30 years. Our most successful ad ever had this headline. FSBO stands for sale by owner, for those of you who don't know. Call a FSBO, go to jail. I wrote that and we ran it right after the do not call list law. Now you really, unlikely you would go to jail. I don't really care about facts.
I don't care about accuracy. God, these people. Yes, let's pretend that people are going to go to jail. I don't care about facts. Oh, God, this guy's such a douchebag.
They're not a big thing in my life. So it's
Facts are not a big thing in his life. He said it. Go ahead and rewind if you need to hear that.
euphemistic. But you could lose your real estate license. You could lose your ability to be a real estate agent, and you could pay big fines if somebody's on the do not call list.
But I don't care about accuracy.
And at the time, his main competitor, pretty much all he taught as a coach was call FSBOs. Well, so we ran this ad, call a FSBO, go to jail. Never beat it before. We've never beat it since. Now, it doesn't work, by the way, right now because people became immune to the problem.
Because it sounds like this wasn't accurate anyway. So they became immune to it because they learned the truth that they couldn't go to jail by calling a for sale by owner number.
It still exists. But so the end of life as we know it, another version of it is the put the fear of God in you school of advertising. And the thing you should know is that surveys consistently show people are less afraid, even death, debilitating illness, almost anything. They are more afraid of being embarrassed. This tells you how foolish people are, but nonetheless, it's where they are.
My superpower is that I actually don't get embarrassed. It would actually take a lot to embarrass me. So I'll be curious what advertising seems embarrassing here.
It's why people use the language of, I felt like I would die. I was embarrassed to death. Imagine.
It's a strong feeling. Embarrassment and shame are very strong feelings.
How could you be embarrassed to death? This mess was pretty embarrassing. Fortunately, I don't really care, but I certainly am not going to lose any sleep. Embarrassed to death. So Max Sackheim wrote this ad in 1918, and it ran every week for 40 years. Think about that. No changes. Those of you who are every day redoing everything to pacify Facebook and Google, think about that. 40 years. Wrote it once, never changed it.
And this is why I don't have much respect when boomers say that people my age don't work hard anymore. I can get more done probably in a day than this guy could get done in a typical work week because of the technology I have at my disposal, because of the huge amount of intellectual resources that are online that tell me exactly how to do things. So yeah, like imagine he wrote copy once and never had to write it again. No, I cannot imagine my life being that easy.
Its appeal is this.
What? Yeah.
Do you make these mistakes in English?
Effect and affect are a big one for me.
Headline that worked for 40 years because everybody immediately, I don't know. And I don't want to be embarrassed in front of everybody.
I don't know if it's embarrassment or just, oh, I want to be able to write in English. I don't want to make these mistakes. I'm not embarrassed about them, but I don't want to make them.
Nobody does. Now, you should note, he wrote this in 1918. In 1926, when he wrote the Book of the Month Club advertising, he went right back to the same, will you be embarrassed in front of people because you haven't read the latest book. Next great school.
So cool. He was like a one-trick pony then.
School of advertising involves sex.
Yeah.
Double entendre began in the 17th century. It means a phrase open to two interpretations, one of which is indecent. Now,
I think it might have begun earlier than that, right? We take a brief break in this video to explore double entendres because I was like, wait a minute. He's saying they've existed since the 17th century. And I know that when I took ancient French literature in college, I just looked up one of the books we read was called Gargantua, and it was written in 1534. So I know that there was some sexual and satire stuff in there and some double entendres for sure. So I was like, wait a minute, when did double entendres start as a thing? And it looks like the earliest use of a double entendre was in Homer's The Odyssey. It like literally references that in this Wikipedia article, which I will link in the show notes. But I think what he's really talking about is sexual innuendos. I think a sexual innuendo is a type of double entendre. Double entendre just means like two meanings, right? So something can have two meanings. And if something has a second meaning that's sexual, I think that's a sexual innuendo. You know me, I like to be precise when I do my recordings. So in his mind, they were invented in the 17th century, but just know that they've existed basically since humanity has been producing content. Let's get back to it.
You got to understand the standards of what's indecent have changed a lot since this ad ran in, I don't have it here, but it ran in the early to mid 60s. So this is a JFK administration era ad. It's the most successful ad this company has ever run. They're still in business today.
How do we know it's their most successful ad ever? I feel like the nature of advertising has changed, where instead of buying one ad in the Wall Street Journal or something, instead I'm buying a series of smaller ads in more specific markets. So for example, if I sell pens, I might take out an ad about these pens to millennials talking about how they're perfect for bullet journals. And I might take out an ad for these pens to boomers to say that you'll be able to read the writing more easily in your notes. Do you know what I mean? I would tailor the message based on who was seeing it. So rather than having one big ad, I'm taking out much smaller ads. So I don't think this is a fair comparison necessarily to be like, this is the most successful ad, when the nature of ads now is just that you're taking out a series of smaller targeted ads.
It's a famous ad.
Unless you're a Super Bowl commercial, but there's very few companies that can afford that.
And it has a double entendre, and the second part of the meaning is indecent for its time.
Okay. Show us now.
At the time, the only people who colored their hair, first of all, were women. Secondly, they were either actresses or prostitutes. That's who colored their hair. No respectable woman would color her hair. And so Clairol ran this ad. It's got what is colloquially called today a MILF. If you're offended by that, you know what it means. Therefore, you're not allowed to be offended.
That's weird logic and not it, but
see, if you get the joke, you can't be offended by the joke.
No.
Ever.
Says the old white guy.
Or people tell me, when Joan was at the super conference, when Joan Rivers was at the super conference with us, and when Joan was alive, people would say, I found that whole thing you just did about handicapped people really. If you get the joke, you can't be offended by the joke.
Yes, you can. Okay, so when did Joan Rivers pass away? Let's see. I'm triangulating when this was recorded. So Joan Rivers passed away in 2014. So this was recorded after 2014. All right, we're getting closer.
Too much. Anyway, so here she is.
Here she is.
And she's got her little daughter peeking out from behind her. And the headline is, does she or doesn't she? The ad is actually about, does she color her hair? And only her hairdresser knows for sure. But the double entendre, of course, is something else entirely.
I'm not getting the double entendre. Oh, is she a prostitute or is she not a prostitute? Is that what the double entendre is? I don't know. I guess I don't know if I get this.
It was the talk of the time. Late night jokes about it. There's a whole joke book of does she or doesn't she jokes. We're going to skip a couple for the sake of time, and we'll leap to something that is somewhat apropos. The school of curiosity, school of advertising. Curiosity really does kill the cat.
Do you know the full expression? Curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction brought him back. So he was curious, was satisfied, and therefore was worth the curiosity. AKA, it means the complete opposite of what everyone thinks it means.
If you arouse people's curiosity, they then have to pay attention to your advertising. If they already know the answer, they may not pay attention to the advertising. There's a guy by the name of Bud Weckeser. How many of you, Bud? You have to yell because I can't see you. Anybody? Nobody. Wow.
That's why you're the one presenting at this conference. Oh, you don't know this other old white guy in advertising? Wow. If I ever get to present on a big stage, I promise I'm not going to be a condescending jerk like this guy's being.
Those who don't study the history of what they do, and whether you know it or not, you are in the advertising business.
You should be an expert on the advertising industry because you're in the advertising business. Why don't you just tell people who this guy is? Why be a condescending motherfucker about it?
If you're new here and you arrived and you think you're in the plumbing business or the proctology business, same, or whatever.
I love how he made a joke and nobody laughed. Proctology, plumbing, same thing.
Whatever business you wanted, you're not. You're in the advertising and marketing business, and your deliverable happens to be plumbing of one kind or another. So Bud ran a bunch of these ads. He's famous, by the way. And so if you don't study the history,
he's famous. I know something you don't know.
Of what you do, you're not doomed to repeat it. You fail to repeat it when it would work for you. That's why you should know some of these people.
Yes, I love to admonish my audience too.
So Bud Weckeser ran these great ads in the 70s, 1970s.
Yes, I also cling to the last century of advertising instead of looking to like where advertising is headed now. Such a great use of my time here.
Mostly for home-based business opportunities, but sometimes for other things. And they
stop moving the fucking paper.
They all had this in common. They all had a photograph of somebody doing something that you couldn't quite figure out what the hell they were doing, like her. Okay? So they had some photograph of a person standing on their head or with a bucket over their head. She's twisting the lid of a jar with a black cloth over top of it, and there's a screwdriver laying here. Who knows, right? And the headline is a pure curiosity headline. Can you tell what this woman is doing? No, you can't. So you are immediately curious. Well,
yeah.
What the hell is she doing? Just like, so.
Curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction brought him back.
It turns out what she's doing is making a bunch of money at home on a weekend, and there's a story. And so that's the school of curiosity. You don't see nearly enough of this. Hardly see this used. People are afraid of it.
No, people are suspicious about it. If I see a multi-level marketing person and they're holding up this thing and they're covering up the label, I'm just immediately thinking that's a gross tactic and I'm just no longer interested. So I think it's that we now live in a society where we value things like authenticity and transparency. That's why this doesn't work anymore, because when it's manufactured curiosity, when it's meant to trick you, we don't like that as a society.
Now, you go through a magazine, this ad will leap out. So some more obvious stuff. We have the school of preposterous proposition.
He loves this font, whatever it is. I think this is the font that was in his preview chapter, the headline font. That's really hard to read.
I like this a lot.
Yeah, that's why I put it in my favorite font.
Because it's very Barnum-esque. When you do this kind of advertising, here's what you do. You set up a proposition that is extremely appealing, that nobody is going to believe. And then you go to work to make them believe it. They want to, but they know. So anybody like over the age of 19 who listens to Bernie and thinks any of that makes sense?
Is he talking about Bernie Sanders? Because I think a lot of what Bernie says makes sense.
He's using this. I don't know if he knows he's using this. He may be nuts. Hard to tell.
Yeah, I don't think you're some genius either, Dan Kennedy.
But if he's not nuts, he's using this. Deficit, schmeficit. Imagine this. He's Jewish.
Are we going to get into some anti-Semitic shit now?
If you're Jewish or you have a friend who's a Jew, none of them are walking around going, deficit, let's triple the deficit. I had a client for a number of years, Len Sheiken, he owned US Gold, go by the inch if you know the company. Len's big deal, we had a guy, we sold a license for his thing in Japan for a lot of money, mid seven figures.
Oh, he's like our marketing D-bags.
The 5 Japanese guys came over to bring the money.
Oh God, are we going to be racist now too?
And bow and meet.
And do a thing that's culturally respectful for them to do. This guy, holy
tour
shit.
the factory and all that.
The fact that he's ancient is the only reason he's even getting away with this. My
Len
God.
takes them to lunch. They've just brought, I swear to God, they have just brought 7 figures. And they have come here from Japan to hand it over in person because that's the culturally correct thing to do. He takes them to lunch at Furr's Cafeteria with coupons. I said, honest to God. So Bernie's running around, who cares? We'll triple the deficit. We'll give everybody everything for free.
Oh, okay. We know what this guy's political leanings are.
This guy's
That's not what Bernie said.
Jewish. So either is nuts and he's going to be disowned by every one of his tribe, but he's doing preposterous school of advertising. This is fun. This makes advertising fun. You set up a preposterous proposition that no one would ever.
What was the side story about taking the Japanese business people out for lunch with coupons? Was he trying to say that this person is Jewish and wants to save money or something? Was that what that was supposed to be? Gross.
Never believe. Intuitively, instinctively, instantly, they know it's BS. And then you go to work to make them believe it. So in the 70s, we still had an idea in America, a consensus idea, that you worked at it. So this was a controversial ad in its time. There were newspapers that refused to run it.
Okay.
Because of this headline. It's a famous ad. It's written by a guy by the name of Joe Carbo. The headline is, The Lazy Man's Way to Riches. There were newspapers that refused to run it.
Yeah, because it sounds like a scam.
Because intuitively, everybody knew then, no, there can't be any such thing.
Yeah.
Today, we can run it. By the way, it should look familiar to you. It's my friend Tim Ferriss's 4-hour work week. It's the same thing, you understand.
The 4-hour work week is the same thing as this ad promising. Okay, so the way that Tim Ferriss got to the book title, The 4-Hour Work Week, is he ran a bunch of Google ads to see which titles people would click on. So the 4-Hour Work Week is just a clickbaity title, but that book was written almost 20 years ago at this point. And I think that if Tim Ferriss would put out a book now, he would pick a different title. And if you read that book, it's about basically creating systems, building a team, outsourcing, taking a look at your life and deciding like what's worth your time and what isn't. I'm not saying there's some stuff in it that isn't gimmicky, because there is. But if you read the whole thing, it's more of an approach, and you take little bits from it and say, okay, this is applicable to my company. I did a broadcast about Tim Ferriss where I use this example, which is in the book, he talks about how at one point he ran this supplement company. And so he had a team of people who would like answer the phone or whatever for customer service. And what he realized is he was spending a lot of his time dealing with people who were like, had complaints, you know, their shipment hadn't arrived in time or the pills weren't sealed, that kind of thing. And so what he did was he gave his people who were dealing with the calls, he said, listen, if you can solve the problem for $25 or less, just solve it. You don't have to take it to me. And so right away, he stopped getting hundreds of emails because the agents had the tools to actually deal with the problem directly themselves. When he saw how well that worked, he upped it to $50. Then he upped it to $100. So this idea that if you empower your employees to solve problems, and just with this idea, hey, listen, I will back you up. We have this much leverage that we can work with. They're able to solve problems on your behalf. So I took that to heart. Ben is currently running cables and wires in our new co-working space, I'm not sitting down with him and being like, okay, let's go over what outlet covers that you're going to do. And let's go over like what cable. I'm like, find the cable you need and we'll get it. Like, we'll get what you need to be able to do the job well. So it's put in my mind that part of the reason you have a team is for them to be able to help you out. And so you need to be able to give them a little bit of flexibility to do that without them having to come to you for every decision. So again, it's a very simplistic way to look at Tim Ferriss's book, but I guess if you wanted to be like, oh, this is like a quick way to get rich, I guess you could see it that way. But I guess I see it in the more subtle way, which is that he gave the book a really clickbaity title so that he would sell more copies. And if you actually read it, you understand that most people are not going to implement every exact thing that he says, but it more gives you ideas to work with. Just my opinion on it.
1970s, I wrote and ran an ad at the same time. And we had magazines refuse to run this because it suggests that anybody and everybody can be a millionaire.
Yeah, and we know that's not necessarily true. So I think part of the reason that publications have problems with ads like this, and if you're listening, what it is, it looks like a newspaper ad and it has 3 columns. So if you would put this in a newspaper, it would look like part of the content. And I think the reason these ads are designed this way is precisely so that you'll think it's part of the actual newspaper content. Even if you would put a border around it or something, it still looks like it might be part of the newspaper. And so if a newspaper prides itself in running true stories and fact checking and all of that, they're not going to want to run this ad that's clearly scammy. That looks like their content.
Preposterous at the time. In weight loss, this is the norm. This is a great control ad for a weight loss product. Take this capsule. It neutralizes all the calories in the food you eat. Eat any damn thing you want. All weight loss advertising is about that proposition, by the way. Eat any damn thing you want. So this is from 1970 something.
Yeah.
In the 1990s. And very recently, you've seen it. There was a powder. You sprinkle it on the food before you eat it. And you can eat anything you want. And the fat grams and the carbs and the calories, this powder, they don't stick then to you and they just shoot right through out the other end and you can eat anything you want. Everybody knows. But then look at all the copy that went to work to make you believe this preposterous proposition. That's fun. See, that's the kind of advertising you want to do if you want to have some fun.
Yeah, lie to people.
School of advertising is, we will prove it. This is a preposterous proposition couched in the proof itself. So
it's like before and after stuff.
This is a control ad from...
I don't know what he keeps saying, control ad. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means like this is the ad that was run and then we ran another experimental ad, but this one was the control. Like I don't get his use of the word control ad here.
Classic. Everybody in the advertising business knows it. It's from 1927. It ran for almost 15 years. It made a weird little guy really rich. If I can't grow hair for you in 30 days, you get this check. The whole thing is the guarantee. That's the whole argument. I'll pay you. I'll write you a check. If I can't grow hair on your bald little pate in 30 days. Can you run that ad today?
If you're going to give them their money back, you probably could.
Yeah, sure. If you're willing to write the checks.
Yeah. If you're willing to not lie to someone, you can.
You can run that ad today. And by the way, you'd be safer today because people are lazier.
I don't know. I don't write one piece of copy and let it run for 15 years. So I would argue I'm less lazy than advertisers of the best.
So the likelihood.
I'm not taking 2-hour martini lunches and carrying on affairs because I have all this extra time. Come on.
Of you having to write very many checks, bald as they may be at the end of 30 days, is not very high. You could run that ad today. Now, you won't see Rogaine running it because they got a bunch of boring, ballless people doing their advertising. I have a client who should be running it. I can't get him to run it. They actually have a product that works.
To grow hair. I will say there's a guy on TikTok who seems to be doing a lot with rosemary water, and other people are talking about rosemary water like So basically you boil rosemary on the stove and then you spray the rosemary water and you work it into your scalp a couple of times a day. It seems to be working for some people. So it's worth a shot if you're curious about growing hair.
Oh, we can't do that. Okay. Gets us to another important school of advertising, the irresistibly good offer.
I feel like, hey, you can try this thing. And if not, I will write you a check for double the amount of money you paid for this hair cure or something. I feel like that's a pretty good offer.
So what do most offers look like?
Money back guarantee.
Pick up any magazine you want, pick up a newspaper, go online.
100% money back guarantee. So an extraordinarily good offer would be like a double money back guarantee. Or I guess you could say like a lifetime product guarantee would also be a really good offer, which is what LL Bean used to offer.
If you can do that recognition thing in 15 minutes in the back, I can give it back to you.
I don't know what he's talking about here.
So we can do it from 10 to 10:15. I can give it back to you. It's up to you. But somebody might want to let me know. So the most often.
Somebody might want to let me know. God, this guy's been catered to his whole life. And he called someone like me a snowflake.
Are the end of a boring advertising pitch. Therefore, the offer itself tends to be boring. And
you seem to be boring.
It is usually stated as, here's a summary of the thing we just described to you, and you can get it, and you can save some money on it. Irresistibly good offer. So most offers are really bland. And even great price offers often fail just because they're not interesting. So as I predicted, Joseph A. Bank is broke fundamentally after going from 2-for-1 to 3-for-1 to 5-to-1, I think. Buy one suit, get 4 free.
Oh, is that the irresistibly good offer? Buy one, get one free. Okay, that's another, I guess, irresistibly good offer.
And on top of everything else, it has an increased gross sales. Because in and of itself, it still is not exciting. It's not irresistible. So when you set out to entice people to respond to you, a very big issue is this, is how irresistible is the offer. Now, a lot of old advertising is really worth paying attention to because they had much higher hurdles to overcome. So you can buy something real easy now. That was not the case in the 1920s, 1930s, 1940s, 1950s, 1960s, even into the 1970s.
I think he's implying that because if someone was going to buy a product, you either had to get them into a store or they had to see it in a catalog and call or mail in the payment and then get the product. I think that's Sugarman. I think that's what he's implying.
I knew many of or know of, and if you don't, you should.
Another person you don't know. I'm presenting to a bunch of stupid people.
Joe, I forget the year. Does anybody know the year? Ron, do you know the year 800 number for the first time? Anybody?
Oh, like 1-800 like phone number, the toll-free number to call.
I think 70s. I believe 1970s.
Okay, so I just looked this up because I was curious, and it looks like the first development of toll-free phone service for the U.S. came in the 1950s and was called Zenith. And this is on a website, and the title is The History of 800 Numbers and Why We Want Them. So it looks like 1950s is about when this started.
Was the first time anybody put a toll-free 800 number in an ad and could take a credit card over the phone.
Okay, the credit card over the phone part might be in the 70s because I feel like the ability to call was one thing, but the ability to run a credit card while the person was on the phone might have come a little later.
Credit card companies wouldn't let you do it.
Yeah, because they want to protect the consumer.
I believe Joe 100% reserved the charges in order to do it. You know, it was hard to buy stuff. So people had a lot of time to not buy because they had to write out a check and they had to put it in an envelope. All these ads I've shown you had coupons in them. Mm-hmm. They had to cut the coupon out, write out a check, put it in an envelope, and tomorrow mail it. If they had a stamp at home, they could stick it out in the mailbox and put the little red flag up and the mail guy would take it. If they didn't have a stamp, they had to go buy a stamp in order to send the order. Think about this.
That's why I try to set up a lot of online donation forms for nonprofits. Because I'm like, listen, like otherwise there's this series of things that have to happen for you to get a donation. And even if you do lose 2.9% of the transaction, you're getting a bunch of transactions you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So it comes out in the wash. So pretty much every donation form that we've ever set up as a company has made at least $10,000 that I've seen, because I usually keep myself on as a developer in case I need to fix the integration on the website or something. And I see the payments come through. So if you run even a small nonprofit, it's worth setting up some kind of online donation form and have it take an open-ended amount of money. Because let's face it, if someone has to pick between $100 and $200, but they want to give you $190, they're going to pick the 100 if it's a choice between 100 and 200. If you have it be blank, they can put in $190. So just a word of advice if you have a nonprofit or care about a nonprofit.
Just convince this guy, if we're not going to grow hair on his head, we're going to give him money at the end of 30 days, and then we're going to give him 24, 48 hours to think about whether he really wants to send that coupon in. Remarkable anybody sold anything, right? And think how much easier it is today. Click.
So he hasn't talked about what an irresistibly good offer is, just that it was a pain in the ass to order things before the internet kind of thing. And getting 4 suits for free after buying 1 is boring. He hasn't said what an actually interesting offer is yet.
So what they had to do applied today works even better. Hence the irresistibly good offer. So
Okay.
our friend Max Sackheim.
Okay, he's finally getting to it. Oh, this Max guy that we're supposed to know, right?
About earlier.
Yeah.
In 1925, when Max created the Book of the Month Club and made it one of the most successful businesses of its kind ever, he did it by combining 4 key elements. The first was very irresistible. Send no money now. Pay us later. Just get started. You're going to love it.
No money down. Cancel anytime.
By the way, all through the 1970s.
That's like all infomercial stuff, right? Hey, no money down, cancel anytime. This is rhetoric we've heard if we have watched any kind of late night cable television where they're trying to sell us something.
You saw a lot of ads where you sent a check, but we won't cash it for 30 days. That's how we did 30-day money-back guarantees.
Oh yeah, 30-day money-back
guarantee.
Send us
your check, but we won't cash it for 30 days. We'll keep it in a drawer, and we won't deposit it until the 31st day, so if you're not happy. But Max just did send no money now. We'll start getting books, and we'll bill you. Subscription, exceptional value, and negative option.
What's negative option?
So
we're not going to explain the negative option thing.
They sold 40 million reprints of classic books in 1920 with a send no money offer. This is another Sackheim ad for Book of the Month. You get only the books you want and pay only for those you keep. This is negative option.
Okay.
Millions of books were sold this way until the FTC got aggravated about it.
Yes, the FTC, which protects consumers, thought this was a little bit predatory. What a problem.
There was a generation of the month clubs that followed Book of the Month Club. It was Cheese of the Month, Wine of the Month. There still exists.
Yeah.
Most of them don't use negative option anymore. There's Pajamas of the Month. There's all sorts of things of the month, including utterly unmentionables of the month
I think this guy's into some really weird stuff
on this model.
It's based on his little commentary.
But negative option works where we send you the book, and if you don't want it, you send it back. Or they would send you a notice of the book they were going to send you, and you could opt out. But if you didn't, that baby was coming with a bill. It was all irresistible offer driven. This is all the way into the 1980s, I think. All these ads look the same.
Oh my God, this is like Columbia House, where in the 1990s you get their advertising offer was you got 10 free CDs for a penny, and then you got a CD a month that you got billed for. And I totally fell for that shit. And I have a lot of CDs from that, I think, still in my little CD collection.
We're old enough to have seen them.
Yeah.
For books, for 8-track tapes,
CDs,
for cassettes. They were all pretty much this idea. You got started, you choose, and this is a literary guild, I think. It's 4 for $1. You choose any 4 books for $1 when you start, and then you're in the club, and you're being negative optioned for evermore. Readers.
Okay, so the reason we don't have this stuff anymore is because the FTC put a stop to it. That makes sense. I kind of wondered what happened to those clubs.
Digest was very big in this business, and it was all So I don't really want to be in a book club.
I don't really read.
I don't really want to get a book every month. But Jesus, 4 hardbound books for $1? How are you going to pass that up? And then look at all these books. Oh, there's a book I like. And there's a book I like. $1. A lot of people, I'm sure, said, I'll do this and then I'll drop out. You're nodding, right? You thought that?
Guilty, yep.
How many books did you get? Yep.
The woman just said more than I wanted.
Yep. I was doing an infomercial for a product called Acne Stat.
He was doing an infomercial for an acne product? Okay, that's interesting.
Was around before Proactive, if you're Proactive. Acne Statin was sold by infomercials in the 1970s, right after Reagan deregulated the airwaves, and we could buy half hours. And so we're taping testimonials for 3 days.
Oh, Ronald Reagan, the creator of all kinds of problems.
For Acne Statin. And we found a great story, 3 generations all using Acne Statin, grandma, mama, and daughter. They were from some Appalachia country, town in, I don't know, Tennessee or West Virginia or whatever. So we fly them into LA. And
okay, so rural and backwards, got it.
So Acne Statin is continuity, right? You're getting a shipment every month and your credit card's getting dinged until you squeal stuff. Just like you wound up with a bunch of books you never read. And even with the intention of, I'm just going to take the 4 books for $1 and So grandma is like 110 and she is shrunken to the size of a little hobbit, but her skin hasn't. So she's like a Shar-Pei dog, this woman. How are we going to put this woman on camera? Ron White's joke about his dog, right, is he lifts up the folds of it and puts M&Ms in there, and then when the dog wakes up, he has a great day. You could have done that with this woman, right? She just is.
She's 110. Of course, we'd expect her to be wrinkled. What is he talking about?
And here's the story she tells. I don't really need it anymore. I haven't used it in years. My daughter's on it, and she gets her own, and my granddaughter's on it, and she gets her own, and it just keeps coming every month. I give it away. I have a big pile of it in my basement. I have a whole section in my basement where I have Acne Statin stacked up. Is all I could do not to say,
just cancel it.
Hun, you can cancel. But they're like my client, and $39 a month is $39 a month. This is what happens, right?
So my friend Matt has a hosting company, and the other day we were going over stuff and we were looking through accounts that were on the server, and I was like, hey, I think like these 15 accounts, I don't think they need hosting anymore. And he looked and he's like, oh yeah, you're right. It looks like they moved their site to Squarespace. I didn't realize that. And so he's going to contact them and be like, hey, I'm going to cancel your auto bill for your hosting so that you don't pay for it. You know why? Because he's not a bad person. And so I don't get why I'm sure $40 meant a lot more to this little old lady than Acne Statin making $40 a month meant to that company. I don't get why telling her that would have hurt anything.
People don't cancel. That was the magic of these offers. So an irresistible offer is what you're doing really just irresistible. You can't turn it down.
So here's this whole kind of advertising that we can't do anymore because the FTC shut it down. Okay, I think it was interesting because like I said, I was a Columbia House person who got a bunch of CDs, but okay, what do we do now? What's a compelling offer that we can do now that is actually legal?
One of the most famous of all. By the way, this and a number of the things I'm showing you are in the Lifetime of Work Archives collection thing. Certainly any of my examples, which you'll see more of those in the second segment, are in there. So if you have that product, you can go.
I don't know if he used shiny paper or something, but I guess the document readers I've seen have a more matte finish so that you don't see the shine. And every time he puts a paper down, it's like there's a very bright light above him that is shining on the paper and obscuring being able to see it.
Go back and find him. This is on.
You can still see part of it, but it looks like there's light coming out of her butt in this photograph. It's like a Las Vegas show dancer lady, but that pool of light, I think, is from the document reader.
294 in volume 1. This is the famous Bob Stupak Vegas World ad. Any of you ever stay in Vegas World before it became the Stratosphere? Yell, I can't see. Nobody. Boy, you missed. So Vegas World.
You missed out, guys. Shit was crazy.
The next time you go to Vegas, Stratosphere is still there. It's quote, quote, the last one on the strip. Bob redefined.
Yeah, I mean, it looks pretty run down, but I think is there like a roller coaster or there's an elevator that goes like to the top so that you can see the whole strip or something? I feel like there's something about the Stratosphere that there'd be a reason to go there. I just can't remember it offhand.
Strip. City of Vegas sued him. He won in court the right to say he was on the strip. It's on Las Vegas Boulevard. It's just nearly downtown in the ghetto.
I don't know if ghetto is the right word, but it's on kind of the opposite end to where the newer casinos are. So you can walk there. It's just a far walk, but
it was a one-story slot machine place. You've seen them. They're wedged in. They're dying out, but they're wedged in between the big casinos. I think there's still a Irish one in Vegas wedged in between two of the big mega resorts. It's only one story. It's only got slot machines in it. You walk in and it smells of beer and sweat and
sounds appealing.
Despair.
Yeah.
And
sounds great.
So Bob bought one of these and he turned it into Vegas World, giant high rise, and it became the Stratosphere, which now has 3 towers and a gorilla-shaped roller coaster, and I don't know. This ad.
Okay, so it does have the roller coaster. Okay. I was like, I remember something about it. I thought there was a roller coaster on the top.
Worked everywhere. This is the ad person's, copywriter's wet dream. Lazy Man's Way to Riches was the same way, by the way. Carbo used to go to his secretary on the first of every month, say, I want to spend X, name a figure, go buy ads, and let her put it anywhere she wanted to. Lazy Man's Way to Riches worked in Playboy. It worked in Good Housekeeping. It worked in newspaper. It worked in the Wall Street Journal. They only ran it once, then they refused to run it. But
yeah,
this
because they were like, oh yeah, we have a reputation and we probably shouldn't run this stuff.
Sad too. Worked everywhere, and any place he could get a decent rate, he ran it. So Goldfish Monthly, this thing probably ran in there once or twice. It ran a lot in Parade, which is a magazine inserted in city newspapers all across the country, still exists. It ran in TV Guide, but you needed a magnifying glass because TV Guide used to be digest size, like Reader's Digest. And I mean, that ad shrunk down to that page is something. But for the right offer,
they didn't redesign it for the smaller page size. Sounds lazy.
People will go get a damn magnifying glass. So don't let anybody tell you can't use 8-point type if you got to.
Don't use 8-point type. You can redesign ads for different sized pages.
If they won't go get a magnifying glass and read it, your problem really is not the 8-point type. Your problem is you didn't arouse enough interest with the big type they could read to send them in search of the magnifying glass. That's the whole problem. So Bob.
Oh, I love this old school of like victim/reader blaming. So predictable.
Ran this ad everywhere.
Boring, actually, though, Dan Kennedy.
It was an irresistible offer ad. And the deal was, I want to get it exactly right, changed a little bit off and on, but for $396, $198 a person, you got your hotel room, a deluxe suite in Vegas World, which, by the way, so Vegas World was always under construction because Bob had this one-story place. He ran these ads. You paid in advance for this package I'm about to describe to you, and that's the money he used to build it with. No debt. So as soon as he had enough money, he built another floor. So this place is always under construction. And it wasn't real good construction. So the deluxe suite, they all had mirrors on the ceiling, the sticky tiles. So
this guy's into some weird stuff.
They're always falling off on people's heads. It was funny.
It's funny for a piece of glass to fall on someone's head. That doesn't sound funny. That sounds dangerous.
Boards draped across because they didn't put enough outlets in. So there's this giant orange extension cord stretched across the hotel room.
Oh, safety.
So the coffee maker could be. It was funny. Right? So you got a deluxe suite.
It was funny until someone like died or got injured from one of these shortcuts. God.
Yeah, I'm getting to the irresistible part.
Yeah, this sounds pretty resistible to me.
You got your meals. You got all the booze you could drink, not just at the tables, but in the bar. If you want to sit in the bar and listen to the music, all the booze was free.
I feel like that's most of Vegas, though. If you're in a casino and you're playing, they're going to give you free drinks.
And you got $1,000 of money to gamble with. So for $396, you got your room for 2 nights and 3 days, as they say in the travel business. You got meals, or you got 2 tickets to a show in the showroom, that was a story in and of itself.
Yeah, probably if they were doing low budget on the room building, I can't imagine they like spent a lot of money on an interesting act for the show that was in-house. But
and on top of everything else, you got $1,000 to gamble with. It's irresistible. Person says, wait a minute. And even when you understand it, it's still pretty irresistible. So $1,000 is all match play, meaning you got a dollar chip of this. You make an even money bet, you win, you get a dollar real chip, but they keep the dollar match play chip. So really the $1,000 is $500 is really what it is. And you can't cash them, you got to play them. But still, you got $500, you got your room, you got all the booze you can drink for free, you got your meals, you got a show ticket. If you believe this is real, that there's actually a place there, when you get there, you say, this is fantastic. Stupak was famous, by the way. He had rigged games. They're all rigged, but he had this MIT whiz guy design special games. Some were pretty obvious and some weren't, but like you could play dealer face-up blackjack, which everybody thought, how can you lose at dealer face-up blackjack? The odds were actually 30% worse than they were with real blackjack, because they also changed some of the rules. You couldn't double down. And so when it was all said and done, even knowing you couldn't win, right? So what dumb people did, including my brother.
the contempt this man has for other people.
Twice, would go to the roulette. So he's got his $1,000 a match play, right? I'm going to turn this into cash, so I'm not captive here. I can go gamble anywhere. I'll fix them. And he would go to the roulette wheel and bet half of it on red and half of it on black.
There you go.
Lots of people did this. Bob said people did it all the time. The roulette wheel had 11 green zeros. However, free drinks, free food, the room, you ain't going nowhere anyway, except over to the ATM machine, from which Bob got a 10% commission.
Bob sounds like an asshole. This is awful. Can you imagine like these people like maybe haven't had a vacation in a really long time? They're like, oh, look, honey, a vacation we can actually afford. And then this is what happens to you. Why are we celebrating this guy? He sounds awful.
So this ad is truly an irresistible offer ad. It makes it brain dead. One part of you is saying there's a catch.
Yes.
Another part of you is saying, hell, even if there is, right? Got to do it anyway. Now, here's what's amazing about this, kind of as an aside. So this built this place. If you go look at it now, what's there was all built one floor at a time with money that came in from these ads.
If it's such shoddy construction, I'm not sure if I ever want to go in that building again.
This went on for a decade.
Okay.
Nobody ever copied it.
Yeah, because it sounds like a very specific set of circumstances is what made it work, which is the fact that the guy already had the land. It was one story, so he had to build onto it. Like, it sounds like there was a specific series of circumstances, and also he was able to be morally bankrupt about the whole thing. Yeah, it sounds like people didn't want to copy it because maybe, like, A, you could only do it if you had this very specific kind of cheap plot of land in Las Vegas, and B, people don't like fucking other people over generally. Yeah, I can see why nobody copied it.
Started everybody thinking he's an idiot. You're gonna lose your ass. How could you be making any money doing this?
Yeah.
First of all, the average redemption was 36 months after purchase, and we were in days of 18% to 22% interest. So building with this money and not debt, you make money no matter what. But then the game is rigged, of course. Nobody copied it. Debbie Reynolds went broke with a casino hotel in Vegas, and I knew her son, and I tried to get her to do this.
And she was like, oh, this sounds really awful. I don't want to do it.
Because it'd be even more believable if we got Debbie Reynolds. So nobody's ever copied it. You see this a lot.
If no one's ever copied it, how do we see it a lot?
That's why you want to look at the gold and the old. This would work perfectly today.
If you were willing to fuck people over, this would work.
If I was running Caesar's Palace, I'd be running this promotion like there's no tomorrow. But nobody copied it. It's a perfect irresistible offer. A linked school of advertising is called the irresistible bribe. The mistake most people make with bribes, bonuses, premiums, freemiums, is they feel compelled to make them relevant.
Yeah.
So if you look at all the Joseph A. Bank advertising, when they're not giving away 5 for 1, you buy a suit, you get a sport coat, you get a shirt, you get a tie. You never get like tickets to mud wrestling, which would probably be more effective.
This guy, mirrors on the ceiling, mud wrestling, the details this guy has in his brain, the waifu pillow. I don't know. This guy's into some interesting stuff. I would love to see his browser history.
Okay, so there is the issue of relevant or irrelevant, but the point of the irresistible bribe is to make you buy something you really don't want because you want the bribe. Anybody know who invented it? You can yell it out if Estee Lauder invented it.
Oh, is this like when you get like a sample, like a perfume sample?
It, of course, is the norm in the cosmetic business, is you come to the cosmetic counter at the department store and you got to buy X amount of glop because you get the bag or you get the hat. Victoria's Secret does it. You got to buy 22 pair of panties and you get the duffel bag, the tote bag. Oh, Estee Lauder invented that. By the way, if you see a guy walking around with a pink and white Victoria Principal tote bag, carrying his stuff in it, we bought 22 pair of panties. You don't know anything else yet. That's how he's got that bag. So the irresistible bribe is about the bribe driving the sale. I don't really want this thing.
I just double checked, and Estee Lauder did invent it in the 1950s. So again, like when he said that double entendres happened in the 17th century, I was like, now I'm just fact checking him because I'm just not sure. But that is actually true.
I don't want it very badly. I'm on the fence about it. But oh, that. So the most famous and the most enduring in this category is actually B2B. So one of the things you will hear if you hang around here is you will hear the B2B people bitching. Oh, almost all the stuff they show us is for selling to consumers.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work for B2B.
It works differently. I think that's most marketing conferences or examples you've given have all been consumer products. They haven't been business products. So them bitching is them bringing up the fact that, yeah, your examples have not been B2B examples. So like they're just pointing that out. I don't think they're bitching about it.
This is the most famous and the most enduring.
Okay.
It's a promotion for Ad Age magazine, which is a trade journal for people in the ad agency world. It's a fairly expensive subscription. I forget how much. They have never beaten this control. And they don't like it, so they keep putting it on the shelf and try to beat it, and then they do it again. Okay. The premium is a coffee mug that is a replica of the front page of Ad Age magazine, and it is your name put in there, wins Marketing Genius Award. That's the premium. What, $1 maybe? Couple bucks? Tops?
Yeah.
I think it's a $200, $300 a year subscription. It ain't cheap. They've never beat this. And you will be included. So I've subscribed twice. I don't want the magazine. I just wanted the damn cup. All right.
Why didn't you just make it for yourself for $2 then?
You will.
You're so much smarter than everybody else watching this.
People tell you. I think I've subscribed 5 damn times. I don't really want the magazine, but I really wanted that cup.
I think you want the magazine. Like you want to know what's going on in the advertising industry, right? But maybe you're like, oh, do I need a whole magazine about it? And you're like, okay, that mug's kind of cool. So maybe rather than saying, I don't want this thing at all, and oh, I really want this mug, maybe it's more of a, I could go either way. Oh, free gift. Okay. Twist my arm. Maybe it's more that.
There's a speaker. I'm going to do one more. There's a speaker. His name's Joel Weldon. Anybody know Joel? Yeah, there we go. A couple old farts. So Joel, I don't mean any disrespect, but Joel's a personal development kind of success speaker. He's a very good speaker, by the way. His shtick is success comes in cans, not in cannots. And he has this little thing. It's like a label for a baby food can. And it's success comes in cans, not in cannots. And the recipe is 2 tablespoons of positive attitude and 1 teaspoon.
Yeah.
Really? Huh? You got to be shitting me. So we produced Joel's tapes when I was in the cassette production business. Cassettes are a thing. Yeah. Well, yeah, you can Wikipedia. It's spelled with a C. So
I guess we say Wikipedia instead of Googling it, but okay.
we did a mailing.
By the way, there's nothing about this guy on Wikipedia. To Wikipedia, this man, Dan S. Kennedy, does not exist. The Dan Kennedy that exists is the person who popularized the Moth.
And the premium was you got one of these cans. In fine print, you didn't get the can, you got the damn label, go buy your own baby food. So if you bought all 4 albums, $50 a piece at the time, so $200, 19.
You got like a sticker?
80 something. You got this can. We're flooded with calls. I don't really want the albums. Can I buy the can? Can I buy 12 cans? Can I buy 144 cans? We want the cans. We want the cans. We want the cans. You can have as many of them as you want at cost, but you got to buy the 4 albums. Okay, I'll buy the 4 albums. This is a business word, right? That's how you know you got a great premium. I saved the Think and Grow Rich TV infomercial by changing the premiums. I didn't change anything else.
Oh, he sold Think and Grow Rich. Ugh.
Just changed the premiums. So an irresistible bribe. So if you happen to be selling something that generally speaking, people don't want, and you can't fix it, you can fix the bribe.
I like that he at least calls it a bribe instead of a bonus.
Direct sales industry figured this out many moons ago. How do you sell something nobody wants, like fire alarms in the home? Who the hell wants fire alarms? Nobody, especially not at $4,000 free smoke detector. You give them a trip to Vegas and cutlery and crystalware.
I don't know what he's talking about here.
All right, I'll take the damn fire alarms.
Why is it a $4,000 fire alarm? I don't.
Well, that's the business they were in. Brings us to the last one of this morning. We have 2 more sessions, by the way.
Yeah. Oh my God. Don't worry. We have 2 more hour-and-a-half sessions with me.
I will be better equipped for the second one. Flashlight, sheet, we'll be good to go.
Oh, I think maybe the sheet would go over the document thing so that the light would be dispersed more uniformly, maybe the flashlight so that it's more lit up as well. I don't quite know what he's referring to here.
Gift with appointment.
Okay.
Last one. So many of you are in some kind of business where you want to get somebody to a showroom, you want to get them into a doctor's office, you want to get them into a financial advisor's office, you want to get them onto a phone call because a phone call is an appointment. You want to get them onto a webcast is an appointment. So gift with appointment is a time-honored classic. If you go back into old advertising, but I'm going to show you current examples, you will find gift with appointment.
Why would you show us current examples for this one? You haven't shown us any current examples yet. I think the most recent thing we saw was from the 1980s, which is over 40 years ago. As somebody who was born in the 80s.
Now, all this is doing is bribing somebody for permission to present. In the fire alarm business, the way you got the rep in the house was with the big stuffed Dalmatian dog. Knock on door, kick door open wide, kids see dog. No, you can't come in. Kids, what? Come in.
That's gross.
Bring the dog. Gift with appointment. So I'm going to show you 2 examples.
Okay.
And one of these you're going to be able to get your little paws on.
Get your little paws on.
I have one more thing. I got to speed up a little bit.
Yeah.
So this is gift with appointment for Miracle Air. This is a piece of the shock and awe package that would get sent to a customer after they booked an appointment to make sure they showed up. This is all free gifts. I'll just be quick.
Yeah.
So here's relevant. When you come to the appointment, you get 5 fascinating health secrets special reports, none of which have to do with hearing. They have to do with everything else old people deal with health. Then there's the irrelevant gifts, TV trivia book, old classic TV or movie DVD, and a magnifying glass. Because what old person who can't hear can see? They all go blind and deaf at the same period of time. Charlie Jarvis's joke to me was, you can look forward to this. At some point, your dog will do double duty. He can lead you around and chew your food for you. So that's terrific, Charlie. So all these gifts.
Sounds like you hang around with some very funny people.
When you came to the appointment. By the way, as a side effect, in 1,200 offices, they immediately made all the salespeople honest, because before that, they were all claiming like an 80% close rate. But when they had to requisition gifts for every appointment, everybody suddenly knew exactly how many presentations that they were making, and they weren't closing 80%. So sometimes this has other benefits. But so this is classic.
So basically, the guy who was the head of the casino basically lied about what people were getting, that they weren't really getting $1,000 worth of play. They were getting 500, that the deluxe suite they were getting wasn't going to be very nice and all this stuff. So he talked about that in this like reverence. But when it's the salespeople who are lying, suddenly it's not so cool. So if you own the business, you get to lie. But if you work for the business, you don't. Got it.
Free gift with the appointment. I have a client right now, sells by classic diagnostic call, get them on the phone, do a presentation. They're hooked up to the computer at the same time. They're looking at PowerPoints, etc. We ran a test 2 months ago. It's about to become the control. You're qualified. You come to that call. You complete that 90-minute call. Whether you do anything or not, we give you $500.
It's like the timeshare thing. Like you go to the timeshare presentation and they give you like a food voucher or a free night stay or something. And it's just this really aggressive sales pitch.
Guy, I don't care. The guy's making $500,000.
I don't care. The guy's making money. Got it. So as long as you're making a profit, we don't care about ethics. We don't care about the customer. We don't care about bamboozling people out of money, because the business owner's making a lot of money. So who cares?
It's hard to walk away from $500 if he was on the fence.
If it ever comes down to, I either get to make $500 or I get to not fuck someone over, I would hope that I pick the not fucking someone over every time. I would really hope that.
Anyway, the math works for us.
Yeah, sounds like it works for you. Doesn't work with the customer though.
You're right in the front row, because if you were in any other row, you couldn't see anything.
I don't get why he's doing all these asides. Like people can't see stuff.
This is Partiv Shah's version. B2B. This is e-launchers. You'll find them in the exhibit hall. It's a little annoying Indian guy.
A little annoying Indian guy in the exhibit hall? What a fucking asshole.
There you go. Doesn't matter. Stand up, sit down, don't make an effort. Nobody can see you.
It doesn't matter.
We could have her take a picture of you and put it up on the screen, but she's clearly busy doing something.
I don't know what these side comments are. They're like really passive aggressive though.
I don't know what she's watching that's so fascinating down there on the floor, but God bless her. But that's the only way anybody could see you. But
it's none of your fucking business what she's watching.
You can find your booth at e-launchers. So this is free gifts. Now, this is consumer. This is old people for hearing aids. If you closely compare this, you will find in a B2B environment, he's doing the same thing, and it's gift with appointment. You bought a bunch, right? If you want a copy of his version, go to the booth. He'll be happy to give it to you. Last thing.
Go. Not now. Not now, honey. Sorry. All right. The dog's getting restless. We're almost done, honey.
Gift on arrival. I'll tell you this quick just because it's so cool. Back to Bob Stupak.
It's not like the annoying Indian guy, you mean? God.
So Bob.
There's 2 minutes left, guys. Hang in there. We're almost done.
Sold that package largely by direct mail. So he needed a list. What better list than the friends, neighbors, or relatives of the people who were there, drinking it up, whooping it up, having a good time. So one of the gifts you got on arrival was postcards. Because what do people do? What did they used to do? They still do. Buy postcards, send postcards home. So he gave.
But postcards are a little hard because I think you need a different stamp than you do for a regular envelope. I could be wrong, but at one point I feel like postcards were a little bit more expensive to send than other kinds of mail, or they cost a different amount of money. Again, now we have the universal stamp. I feel like that's maybe less of an issue, but
postcards with this little toilet paper seat strip wrapped around them. We pay postage for these Vegas World postcards. Just put them in the special mailbox located at the Vacation Club counter on the main floor. 5 to everybody. 300 rooms times 5 is 1,500 postcards. I said to Bob, how many don't use them? He said, nobody. They all use them. Every single one of them. 100% redemption.
I doubt that, but
Irresistible offer, free postage. We
Yeah.
got to know somebody we can send it to. My brother even sent it. I didn't know he had 5 friends.
did he just neg his brother again?
I don't know.
God.
What'd they do?
I bet he didn't send one to you, though.
Entered all the names and addresses in the database before they mailed a postcard. Everybody a week later started getting direct mail.
It sounds a little illegal. They didn't consent to
You
that.
should come to Vegas World, buy this package. You might not have known, but your cheap ass friends were here on this whiz bang deal. Gift on arrival.
Oh my God. Can you imagine spending 2 more sessions with this guy? Because I can't. So it sounds like Dan S. Kennedy longs for a simpler time in American advertising. Back when ad agencies were great, when mediocre white men could have one interesting copywriting idea and then coast on it for 10 years. When women like me would shut the fuck up, and when racism was perfectly acceptable. I'm so glad we're beyond those times right now. I also think it's really interesting that he didn't mention some of the other thought leaders in advertising. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find some people of color and some women, and I'm going to link to them in the show notes so that you can read their stories. Because there were other people in this time making ads. And a lot of Dan Kennedy's ideas in this, the schools of advertising, seem to manipulate people and seem okay with him as long as the company is making money. So I'm really glad that these people are just going to eventually die off. And hopefully what remains is marketers who have a moral compass, are doing the best they can in our broken system, and who are uplifting positive messages instead of negging people like he was pretty much this entire time. So thanks so much for watching. If you enjoy Women with Opinions, please stay on this channel. I have lots more content that I've recorded in the past and that I will record in the future. And if you have an idea for somebody you want me to cover, please leave it as a comment on this video. Or if you're more shy, you can leave it as a suggestion via the contact form of the website. If you want to stay in touch, we have an email newsletter that we're not going to automatically add you to. But if you go to this URL, breakeveninc.com/newsletter, you can check out past episodes, issues, and sign up for it if you want. It's a once-a-month thing. And I hope you decide to stick around and subscribe or watch some more videos. I really appreciate you being here. Have a great rest of your day. And just remember, these marketing douchebags just keep on coming. But the good news is you have a friend, and that's me in the marketing industry. Take care.